Imagine a corporation so powerful that it rivaled entire nations, shaping the destiny of a subcontinent and amassing wealth beyond imagination. Now, what if I told you that this wasn't a dystopian future, but a historical reality? Welcome to the astonishing tale of the East India Company, a corporate giant that didn't just trade goods but rewrote the fate of nations. As we delve into the history of how a mere trading company transformed into the de facto ruler of India, prepare to be captivated by a narrative of conquest, commerce, and the extraordinary rise to power. This is not just a story of business. It's a saga of how a corporation became a force that shook the very foundations of an entire subcontinent. But before we go more in depth into the video, please consider to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications because it helps a lot. And we have more stories in our channel for you to check. In the early 17th century, the global stage was set for a race among European powers to establish overseas empires and control lucrative trade routes. Spain and Portugal had already carved out vast territories, but the kingdoms of England, France, and the Dutch Republic were eager to partake in the wealth generated by overseas ventures. The East India Company emerged against this backdrop, a product of the ambition and economic spirit of London's merchants. The geopolitical landscape was dynamic, marked by intense competition and conflicts. The lure of the Far East, with its spices, silk, and other valuable commodities, fueled a desire for profitable trade routes. Against this backdrop, in 1600s, a group of London merchants sought the favor of Queen Elizabeth I to charter a trading company, the Governor and Company of Merchants of London trading into the East Indies. This marked the birth of the East India Company, setting the stage for an ambitious venture that would eventually transform it from a humble trading entity to a dominant force, shaping the destiny of the Indian subcontinent. We'll witness how this trading enterprise evolved into a political and economic powerhouse, leaving an indelible mark on the course of Indian history. In the early 17th century, the East India Company embarked on its maiden voyages to the East Indies, driven by the promise of lucrative trade in spices, textiles, and other exotic goods. Their initial encounters with Indian rulers were characterized by a diplomatic approach, as the company sought permission to establish trading posts and conduct business in the rich subcontinent. Facing stiff competition from established players like the Dutch East India Company and the Portuguese Crown, the East India Company during its formative years focused on navigating the complexities of Indian politics and securing trade agreements. By the 1610s, progress was made through the acquisition of concessions from coastal rulers, granting the English merchants permission to trade in their ports. In 1639, a significant milestone was achieved when the company purchased a stretch of land on the southeastern coast of India, establishing the colony of Madras. This marked the company's first major foothold on the subcontinent, laying the groundwork for further expansion. The early interactions between the East India Company and Indian rulers were driven by mutual economic interests, with the English seeking profitable trade routes and the Indian rulers seeing an opportunity for economic exchange. Little did they know that these initial forays would pave the way for a dramatic shift, transforming a mere trading company into a formidable political force in the years to come. As the East India Company set sail for the Indian subcontinent, its early forays were marked by trade and diplomacy. Economic motivations were paramount, and the English sought to establish a profitable presence in the thriving markets of India, China, and the East Indies. In 1600s, armed with a royal charter granted by Queen Elizabeth I, the company embarked on its first expeditions to the East. The charter bestowed upon the company a monopoly on English trade with the East Indies, providing it with a unique advantage. The original intent was straightforward: establish trade routes and conduct business in the highly coveted markets of the Far East. Diplomacy played a crucial role in the company's early interactions with Indian rulers. Recognizing the need for local cooperation, the company engaged in negotiations to secure trading rights. By the 1610s, concessions were obtained from coastal rulers, allowing English merchants to establish a presence in key ports. These agreements laid the foundation for the company's initial foothold in India. The establishment of the colony of Madras in 1639 further underscored the company's diplomatic successes. Through alliances and agreements, the English merchants gained not only trading privileges but also secured land for their settlements. While economic interests were the driving force, the early phases of trade and diplomacy set the stage for a more profound transformation. The East India Company, once a humble trading entity, was now positioning itself to become a key player in the political landscape of the subcontinent. Little did they know that these diplomatic maneuvers were the seeds of a future empire that would reshape the destiny of India. The early economic success and territorial foothold established by the East India Company paved the way for a more assertive and, at times, aggressive phase of expansion. The company, faced with competition and geopolitical challenges, began to flex its military might to secure and expand its territorial control in the Indian subcontinent. A pivotal figure in this transition was Robert Clive, who played a key role in shaping the company's military strategies. By the mid-18th century, the company had recruited thousands of British and Irish soldiers for its private army, creating a formidable force. The military power, combined with alliances among smaller states in India, provided the company with the means to exert control through force. One of the defining moments was the Battle of Plassey in 1757. Clive, orchestrating a masterful strategy, led a small British force against a numerically superior Bengalese army. The use of modern artillery and rifles proved decisive, leading to a British victory. This triumph allowed the East India Company to take control of the extensive region of Bengal, marking a turning point in its expansion. In the following decades, military conquests became the hallmark of the company's rule in India. Officers like Clive continued the policy of territorial expansion, often at the expense of local princes and nawabs. Wars were fought against the Mysore and other native powers, solidifying the company's dominance. Despite tensions with other European powers, including the French, the company's military prowess prevailed. The Anglo-Dutch Wars in the 17th century and the strategic victories against the French in India during the Seven Years' War further enhanced the company's standing. As military triumphs stacked up, the East India Company's territorial control expanded from a handful of ports and factories to encompass vast territories across India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh by the early 19th century. The once trading company had transformed into a military and political force, reshaping the map of the Indian subcontinent through a series of calculated battles, alliances, and strategic maneuvers. With its military might securing territorial control, the East India Company turned its attention to economic exploitation, transforming the Indian subcontinent into a source of immense wealth. The company implemented various strategies that capitalized on economic opportunities, often to the detriment of the local population. One key aspect of the company's economic strategy was the establishment of monopolies. The East India Company wielded monopolistic control over trade, particularly in lucrative commodities like tea and textiles. This monopoly allowed the company to dictate prices, control supply chains, and eliminate competition, ensuring a virtual stranglehold on key sectors of the Indian economy. Taxation policies were another tool employed by the company to extract wealth from India. The imposition of heavy taxes on Indian subjects, coupled with the exploitation of land revenue systems, contributed significantly to the economic drain on the subcontinent. Local rulers who cooperated with the company were often burdened with exorbitant taxes, depleting the resources of their territories. Resource exploitation further fueled the economic exploitation. The company exploited India's abundant natural resources, from raw materials to skilled labor. Indian artisans and craftsmen were forced to produce goods for export, contributing to the enrichment of the company and its shareholders at the expense of local industries. The economic drain on India was exacerbated by the unequal terms of trade. The company manipulated trade imbalances, ensuring that the value of goods exported from India exceeded the value of those imported. This skewed economic relationship led to a continuous outflow of wealth from the subcontinent, leaving behind economic disparities and hindering local development. The cumulative impact of these economic policies was profound. India, once a prosperous and self-sufficient economy, found itself increasingly drained of resources. The East India Company's pursuit of profit at the expense of the local population sowed the seeds of economic inequality, setting the stage for a long-lasting legacy of exploitation and impoverishment. The economic imprint of the East India Company's rule would be felt long after its dissolution, shaping the economic landscape of the subcontinent for years to come. The East India Company's rule in India had profound cultural implications, influencing governance, education, and social structures in ways that left an enduring mark on the subcontinent. The East India Company not only controlled territories but also assumed governing responsibilities. This marked a significant shift in the traditional governance structures of India. The company's rule often bypassed indigenous systems of administration, leading to the imposition of British-style governance. This had a lasting impact on the administrative and legal frameworks in India. The establishment of British rule disrupted existing power structures, leading to the marginalization of local rulers and aristocracy. The British introduced new social norms, affecting traditional hierarchies and social practices. The impact was particularly pronounced in urban areas where the company exerted direct control. The East India Company played a pivotal role in shaping the education system in India as well. In 1813, the company advocated for the promotion of education, leading to the establishment of schools and colleges. However, the education system introduced was often Eurocentric, emphasizing Western values and knowledge. This had a transformative effect on the intellectual landscape, influencing the emergence of a class of Indian elites, educated in English and exposed to Western ideas. More importantly, the promotion of English as the medium of instruction had a lasting impact on language and communication. English became the language of administration, education, and governance, leading to a linguistic shift that continues to influence India to this day. The adoption of English facilitated communication between different linguistic groups but also created a cultural divide. The company's rule facilitated cultural exchange between India and Britain. While the British introduced aspects of their culture, such as architecture and dress, they also absorbed elements of Indian culture. The East India Company's rule had varied impacts on religious practices. While it did not directly interfere with religious beliefs, the British often adopted a policy of religious tolerance. However, the promotion of Western education and the influence of Christian missionaries led to a gradual shift in religious perspectives in certain regions. In essence, the cultural impact of the East India Company's rule was multifaceted. It marked a period of significant transformation, where traditional Indian structures encountered and, in some cases, assimilated elements of British culture. The legacy of this cultural interchange is visible in modern India's diverse cultural, social, and educational landscape. The East India Company's rule in India was met with various forms of resistance and rebellion as the local population sought to challenge the company's dominance. Several key figures and movements emerged during this period, reflecting the deep-seated discontent among Indians. Rani Lakshmibai, the queen of the Maratha-ruled state of Jhansi, became a symbol of resistance during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. She played a leading role in the uprising against British rule, fighting fiercely in defense of her kingdom. The siege of Jhansi and her subsequent battles with the British Army became iconic moments of resistance. Mangal Pandey, a sepoy in the East India Company's army, played a pivotal role in sparking the Indian Rebellion of 1857. His act of rebellion in Barrackpore, known as the Sepoy Mutiny, was a catalyst for broader discontent among the sepoys, leading to a widespread uprising against British rule. The last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah II, was a reluctant figurehead during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Despite his limited involvement, his association with the uprising and his subsequent capture by the British marked the symbolic end of the Mughal Empire. Bahadur Shah II was tried and exiled to Rangoon, symbolizing the loss of Mughal power. Kunwar Singh, a zamindar or landowner in Bihar, led a significant rebellion against the British during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. His leadership in Bihar and parts of eastern Uttar Pradesh showcased the diverse and widespread nature of the resistance against the East India Company. Nana Sahib, the adopted son of the exiled Peshwa Baji Rao II, played a prominent role in the Indian Rebellion of 1857. He led the siege of Kanpur and became a symbol of resistance against the British. The subsequent massacre at Kanpur remains a haunting chapter in the history of the uprising. These figures and movements collectively represent the widespread discontent and resistance against the East India Company's rule. The Indian Rebellion of 1857, often referred to as the Sepoy Mutiny or the First War of Independence, marked a turning point in the struggle against British dominance, ultimately contributing to the subsequent shift in governance from the East India Company to direct British control under the British Crown. The legacy of the East India Company's presence in India is deeply ingrained in the nation's history, leaving an indelible mark on its political, economic, and cultural landscape. The company, initially established for trade, evolved into a force that significantly shaped the trajectory of the Indian subcontinent. Political impact. The East India Company played a pivotal role in the political transformation of India. The company's territorial acquisitions, military conquests, and establishment of a centralized administration laid the groundwork for British colonial rule. The events of 1857, though quelled by the British, marked a turning point that eventually led to the end of the company's rule and the direct governance of India by the British Crown. Economic legacy. The economic impact of the East India Company was substantial. Its policies of economic exploitation, including monopolies, taxation, and resource extraction, contributed to the impoverishment of India. The economic drain on the subcontinent during the company's rule left a lasting legacy of economic disparities, shaping India's economic challenges long after its independence. Cultural influence. The cultural interchange between the East India Company and India had a lasting impact on the nation's cultural fabric. The introduction of Western education, English language, and European architectural styles left enduring imprints. Despite the tumultuous nature of this cultural exchange, it contributed to the diverse and multicultural identity of modern India. Social transformation. The social structures of India underwent significant changes during the East India Company's rule. The disruption of traditional power structures, the imposition of British-style governance, and the introduction of new social norms influenced the social dynamics of the subcontinent. These changes set the stage for subsequent social movements and debates on identity and tradition. Nationalism and independence movement. The resistance against the East India Company, epitomized by the Indian Rebellion of 1857, laid the foundation for later nationalist movements. The struggles against British rule, fueled by a desire for self-determination, independence, and cultural preservation, gained momentum in the 20th century. The legacy of resistance against the company played a crucial role in the eventual quest for independence. Legal and administrative systems. The British legal and administrative systems introduced by the East India Company left a lasting legacy. Elements of these systems continue to influence India's governance structures, legal frameworks, and bureaucratic practices. The administrative infrastructure established during the company's rule laid the groundwork for modern Indian governance. In conclusion, the East India Company's presence in India was a complex chapter in the nation's history. While it left scars of economic exploitation and cultural disruption, it also became a catalyst for resistance, shaping the contours of India's struggle for independence. The legacy of the East India Company remains embedded in the collective memory of the nation, serving as a reminder of the resilience of the Indian people and their enduring quest for self-determination and sovereignty.